And at this point, I'd like to introduce Bishop Stone for the opening prayer.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for such a wonderful day that you continue to bless us with. We thank you for your tender loving kindness and your mercy. Father, we pray for a moment of understanding. We ask you to increase our wisdom, our knowledge. Let us come together, God, is in one unit, God, and that everything we say and that we do tonight will be pleasing unto you. We thank you right now, God, for this opportunity to come to share with one another. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Bishop Stone. And now we meet our panel for the evening. In order to save time for our faith leaders' thoughts and questions, we're going to let our distinguished panel introduce themselves as they speak. Tonight, we all seek to explore the moral calling to work for environmental justice, and our panelists and you, our guests, are asked to consider and speak to why fighting for environmental justice and creation care is a moral calling for you, and perhaps also sharing how fighting for these connects with your faith and your personal values. Have you considered environmental justice and creation care as a moral calling similar to racial and social justices before today?
Okay, so I guess it's on me. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Lafayette Jefferson, Dr. Lafayette Jefferson. I gotta get used to that. All right, I was raised in Richmond, Virginia, went to Norfolk State, ended up going in the military and eventually getting a doctorate from Virginia Union. I'm the current president of the Petersburg NAACP and a board member of the local YMCA and the Petersburg Economic Development Authority. If you ask me, I'll just tell you, I fight righteous fights. And I believe it's actually our mandate as faith leaders to fight everything that's wrong. And if you take a close look, well, not even a close look, but if you just glance at the Great Commission, which is Matthew chapter 28, verses 16 through 20, my reading of it is, and this is Lafayette Jefferson version, is that Jesus pretty much establishes that he's the authority to bring others in community and to train them, or which is to organize, to live in the way that he says. And the last part is he gives us support and he will have our back forever, which is a long, long time. All right, community organizing is something that's actually in our job descriptions as faith leaders. And whereas I've seen a lot of people just focus on the Bible and say all they need is the Bible, it's like, no, in order to fight the problems of today, we actually need to understand the problems of today. So it doesn't matter if it's gentrification, it doesn't matter if it's a landfill, privatization, other things that can poison the environment or the community. It's up to us to be on top of all of that so that we can fight it effectively. Because if you look at the historical placement, and I'm going to specifically say the Black preacher, if you look at the historical placement of the Black preacher, it was our job to translate everything that was happening within our community and around our community in order for others to understand it in the way that they actually need to understand it. And what's happening right now is a lot of people don't understand how important these fights are ahead of us. And that's partially why we got the level of participation that we currently have. Thank you. And next we will hear from Dr. Mary Finley Brooke.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm going to do three things because we want to keep things short and really get to some discussion. So I want to do three things tonight. I want to start with some bad news. And that does motivate me. I won't say it's necessarily my spiritual faith in the bad news. I want to do the good news, and I want to provide some resources. So the bad news about specifically this project is it is completely unnecessary. And even Transco says that they can supply this same gas. The bad news is that it's overpriced by $3 billion. The bad news is that it's way, way, way over. It's a delayed project by many, many years. And we're just not dealing with good companies here. And that hurts me in more than a spiritual way, but it really hurts our soul to see companies that are destructive to communities. This is one that has an awful lot of violations. And it is one that is messing up water in aquifers upriver. Right now, people are trying to do a federal injunction because they've drilled into an aquifer near Roanoke, which is upstream from you. So bad news is that this is a risky project. It's going over a lot of mountains, which are potential for explosion. There's definitely potential for landslides. Bad news is compressor stations, which one of them is cited obviously in Pittsylvania County. That's where you get the most combustion of some of these toxic things. And as you know, there's already asthma, there's already a lot of particulate matter. So bad news is that this is disproportionately impacting your county in a negative way. Bad news is they don't give you the truth about jobs. So they projected a lot of things that might not show up. All right, I get called Debbie Downer a lot. So I'm gonna start switching to some good news because I think I will run out of time soon. But the first thing I need to say this week is that we are in a climate crisis. As you know, the United Nations, Antonio Gutierrez, says that if we don't stop fossil fuels, basically we are in peril of the earth and the earth systems that sustain us. And that it's accelerating really, really fast. And pastors know what that is. The faith community knows droughts, floods. We're feeling it in Virginia, these heat occasions where elderly people are really at risk. And so we know that we need to transition. So that's where I'm going to transition to some positive things. Number one, good news. People have been fighting this all along the path for 7 years. This pipeline will not be built. That I believe that strongly. I'm not just saying that. It's been 7 years. And there are so many reasons, I gave some of them, that they will not be built.
Mary, you've frozen up.
I think we're gonna, let's just hold our breaths for a second. May
You hear me
come
now?
back around. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, I'm just gonna go off video. So the good news is that there are alternatives. So those of you, many of us know each other. We know that we are fighting for green and renewable jobs in Buckingham. We know that that's what's happening in Charles City. We've stopped compressor stations. We've stopped gas plants. We've stopped pipelines, but we're building healthy jobs. We're building local economies. We're protecting water. So those are all the good news. The really good news, the main point I want to make, and I know I'm going to run over my 3 minutes, but the main point I want to make tonight is this is an illegal project, and we have the code in Virginia under the EJ Act for the Air Board to decide at their meeting on September 17th that this violates the EJ Act. The EJ Act is violated in two ways. First, there has to be meaningful participation. Sometimes that's called meaningful involvement. Sometimes that's called meaningful engagement. It's still being defined by law, but what it means is local people were deciding about this project from the beginning. You might not know what that is, but I know a lot of people on this call know what is discriminatory exclusion or lack of access. And that is what has happened throughout the process. And as people show that, they're going to be able to show this as an illegal project. Environmental justice is not a box to be checked. It's also not about window dressing, and that is the evidence that DEQ has put on this file. The other reason why this is an illegal project, it has disproportionate impact. We know Bannister District is an environmental justice community. It has been defined that way, both on race and on income, and also vulnerability. There are high rates of asthma and particulate matter. It is burdened by the compressor stations, the Transco compressor station that has been so dirty in that community and really caused air pollution has been cleaned up a little bit, but people have had to live with that. So I'm going to make my ending points here and say this is a bellwether case, and I'm going to ask Josh to put 2 sources. I have put a bunch of sources on the Pittsylvania County NAACP Facebook site. I'm going to ask Josh to put up 2 more sources talking about how at a national level, lawyers are watching this to set a precedent in environmental justice. It's a choke point because in North Carolina, there's no more permits. They've said no. So I'm going to stop there and encourage you to look at these sources. I believe that Pat Jordan was supposed to be on after me, and I hope they've been able to join us. I'm sorry for going over.
That's okay. It was great information.
Unfortunately, I don't see Pat, but I just wanted to convey a message that maybe there was an emergency that came up that she was unable to attend, but she was really looking forward in joining this meeting here tonight to meet with everyone here and just talk about the unity of all of the different NAACP units across the Commonwealth of Virginia. My name is Karen Campbell, and for those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I am the Environmental and Climate Justice Committee Chair for the Virginia State Conference NAACP. So on behalf of Pat, and I'm not going to take up all her time just in case she shows up, and I want to reserve a couple minutes for her to be able to say hi. But again, she wanted to just talk about the unity and how important it is for all of the different units to join together in unity as we combat these environmental injustices across the Commonwealth. And we're actually working on another environmental injustice case in the Hanover County. She's the president of the Hanover County NAACP, who is currently going through the Wegman Distribution Center, which is another industrial use that is being placed in a historically African-American community. So with that, thank you. And I apologize for her not being here, but I know she really wanted to meet everyone here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and hear from Crystal, from Crystal Cavalier and Jason Campos' Crazy Bear Keck.
Halito Chima Chukma, that just means hello, and I hope you all are good. If you know anything about my wife, you know that she's 5 steps ahead. So she's actually on a call, planning an action in October to November, while I'm here just representing the actions next week and at the end of the month in September. So I apologize for her absence, and I'll try to do her justice in 3 minutes. So I'm really here by accident in this region, but as we are all people of faith, we understand that there are no accidents, right? The Creator has a plan, and his plan brought me all the way from the West Coast to the Southeast to meet Miss Crystal Cavalier. And so what I can tell you is that both of us are of tribes. I'm Choctaw, Louisiana. On my mother's side, both of my grandparents were 2 separate bands of Choctaw in Louisiana. My wife is from the Saponi, people that are from Virginia, North Carolina traditionally. And coincidentally, both of our tribes are mixtures of African, Indigenous, and forced European descendancy. And so we have many complexions among our people, and it has no relevance to our culture. As you see, I'm learning my language. My mother was the last one, and my grandmother was the last one, and my mother and uncles and aunts weren't allowed. So when I say is my mother and my father met through the civil rights movement with Dr. King. I was real inspired to hear the church that he represented on this call. They marched with Dr. King in Chicago. It's how they met and how I was born. And I got uncles that were in the Black Liberation Movement as well as the American Indian Movement, which was, if you know anything about the American Indian Movement, inspired from the Black Liberation Movement. So, you know, as all of these projects came about, I fought them all. KXL, I was fighting from the West Coast. When the Louisiana project came through my homelands, I was supporting there. When all the people went up to Standing Rock and had this national attention or international attention. I was supporting there. And then I married my wife, who had no idea this was like 7 to 10 years project, because they kept it secret that way, but found out 4 years ago that it was coming through her tribal grounds, that they were willing to dig up not only enslaved relatives' burial grounds, but traditional indigenous burial grounds way back before contact. And she just started fighting for the neighborhood. And as we took it to the city and then the county and then the state, somehow she became the face. And we realized that this, what we symbolically call a snake, starts all the way prospectively in West Virginia and plans to be built through here. And from what we hear from the inside, they plan to pump it out eventually through Florida overseas. And if you know anything about what they say in the media, it's for, you know, our growing populations. And that is a huge lie, because it's not for our growing populations. Our growing populations would be content if they would fix the industry that we already have in the ground. There's just no money in that. That's a cost to them to fix what's already broken or what's already rotting or rusting. The only money in them is to develop new projects and get funders to pour money into it. And that's what they're trying to do in our communities. So with that, I say I'm in this for the long haul. I would say all you leaders of faith have a responsibility to your people. I know I have a responsibility to mine. This touches home, and so I'm not going anywhere. And you know, they can arrest me, they can do whatever they want, they can take money from me. But if I can save this for my grandchildren, that's just, you know, what God has intended. So I'm gonna complete there because I'm sure I went over 3 minutes, and pass it to Faith Harris, Reverend Faith Harris.
Thank you. I'm Faith Harris, and good evening, everyone. I'm co-director for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, and we collaborate among people of faith and conscious to grow healthy communities by advancing climate and environmental justice. I'm happy to be with you this evening to share a few thoughts and encourage faith leaders to lend their power to this struggle. And allow me to share an Indigenous prayer from the Ute people. Earth teach me quiet as the grasses are still with new light. Earth teach me suffering as old stories suffer with memory. Earth teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth teach me caring as mothers nurture their young. Earth teach me courage as the tree that stands alone. Earth teach me limitation as the ant that crawls on the ground. Earth teach me freedom as the eagle that soars in the sky. Earth teach me acceptance as the leaves that die each fall. Earth teach me renewal as the seed that rises in the spring. Earth teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. And earth teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain. I recently read this quote, and that was a prayer from the Ute people. And it's beautiful because it reminds us that the earth has lessons to teach us. But I recently read a quote, and this is the quote: "When we take our air, our waters, and our land for granted, when we show a simple lack of respect for nature and our environment, we unmake God's good creation." And that quote is not a quote that comes from a reverend or a minister, but it comes from John Lewis, who we know was a giant in civil rights and social justice movements. But he knew, and so did so many of our other icons from the civil rights movement, knew how important and critically important the environment was to any kind of social or any kind of justice movement. And this quote on the subject of climate change is, for some people, it's surprising that it came from John Lewis, but for many it isn't. So many of our civil rights leaders and human rights icons understood the critical importance of staying in sync with the earth to learn what it means to be in communion and right relationship with ourselves, others, and ultimately the God we invoke. So many who understood justice started their lives like John Lewis, in touch with the environment as children, learning lessons from chickens and grass, wind, sun, and water. He writes about that in his autobiography. They learned the reality of our connectedness, but they also learned that life and all its goodness is intended for all Earth's creatures to experience and to enjoy. And we do the work of caring for the environment, when we do the work of caring for the environment, by advocating for environmental justice alongside communities overburdened by economic neglect or oppressed by polluting and poisoning industries, we are doing God's work. Faith leaders have an obligation to use their voices, their time, their talents, their treasures to heal humans. We cannot heal humans, however, or all that ails humanity without giving attention to the brokenness humanity has caused to the earth and to its creatures. We are to be co-creators with life, with earth, with the universe, and with God who calls us to this work. Earth teaches us this truth. The ultimate end we are all seeking deep down within the furthest reaches of our psyche is peace and healthy relationships with all living beings. To be in sync and in harmony with all of life, sharing together the beauty and the bounty, and to become the beloved community, we must start our lessons with the curriculum Earth provides. May it be so for all of us as we do the work of creating beloved community. Amen and ashe.
Ashe.
And I now turn it over to Elizabeth Jones, Chair of the Pittsylvania County NAACP Environmental Justice Committee.
Thank you, Reverend Harris, and good evening, everyone. We live by faith, not by sight. And as we hear about the damages that are done to God's world and God's people, we have to remember that we need strong faith leaders to keep our faith strong. I'm chair of the Pittsylvania County NAACP Environmental Justice Committee. This committee is new. In fact, the NAACP Pittsylvania County Branch Environmental Justice Committee is 6 months old, not 8 months old, but we're proud because we are fighters. We're fighting for our community, and we're fighting for our friends, and we're fighting for our neighbors, because we know that this pipeline is not needed. We live a quarter mile from the Transco Williams pipeline, built in 1957, upgraded in 2018, and still pumping emissions. Fracked gas from the pipeline gets pressured and pushed to get to its destination. That's what compressor stations do. And we are victims of that compressor station, because being so close to it, Anderson, my husband here, has asthma. His mother passed away from asthma in 1976. And the pipeline was here, it was built. I'm not saying that it caused it, but it is known that emissions from fracked gas compressor stations are hazardous. And it's also a fight that the NAACP is in, because the pipelines want to find the right placement, the areas of least resistance. And although this is God's world and we are God's people, they have ways of getting what they want. And they want this compressor station in Pittsylvania County, endangering the lives of the future. The future is very important, faith leaders. It's important because our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come have God's world to live in and God's heaven. He created both of those, didn't he? And we call that home, home here on earth. But the damage being done from the atmosphere, the environment, the human existence may mean we go the way of God's creatures called dinosaurs. And we do not want that. We are close to the pipeline, but we're also objecting to the fact that a third compressor station would be built in Pittsylvania County because we know what it will do. The health risks, the climate impact, the good work being done by clean energy producers without much support. Our faith leaders need to talk to us about this, the congregation, members of the church, and that's what we want you to do. The recreational activities that we have gone, the wonderful legacy of Anderson's family, it brings pride, it brings tears, it brings anger because, again, it was a victim of racist tendencies, and that's why we're in the fight. But we haven't only fought for this, we fought for our community for many, many years, and we've been members of the NAACP for many, many years. In fact, we have recently become Gold Life members, proud to be members of an organization that wants to help people who don't even know they need help. And those faith leaders in this meeting know what I mean. But we have to work together. We have to get DEQ, that is the Department of Environmental Quality in Virginia, to deny a permit to open Lambert Southgate Compressor Station in Pittsylvania County. Oh, I'm praying for that. I'm praying for that really hard. So is Anderson. We're praying for that because we know that there are people in our community who are sick, who do not understand or know about what Lambert is doing. Mountain Valley Pipeline and Lambert Compressor Station, we need to fight. We need to fight against their opportunity to poison us. We need help from the DEQ. When was the last time you received a water quality report or an air quality report? We're living on, as I said, less than a quarter mile away from a large compressor station. It's one of the biggest fracked gas compressor stations on the East Coast, I'm sure of it, and it's growing. But Mountain Valley Pipeline is greedy. They see something that they want and they want to get it. But we know the power of the Lord, and all we have to do is put our faith in Him and our community and preachers to tell the congregation that faith and fighting for victory will work out. I hope you don't think I'm a minister. I'm an educator, 32 years, public school, and it's wonderful to be able to breathe clean, fresh air. It's wonderful to be able to drink clean water. And that's what we're in the fight for today. There is environmental injustice, there's environmental racism, and we have to stand in the fight and say, not in our community, put it somewhere else. Or we're going to use clean energy. We're going to get some sunlight. We're going to get some wind blowing. And we're going to use energy that does not destroy God's world and will not end God's people. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for being here with us. And I'm going to turn the program over to the moderator.
Back to me. All right.
Anita?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, panelists. We're so grateful for your presence here with us tonight, and very glad that you will stay with us as our faith leaders share their thoughts and questions. Now, I would like to open the floor for our faith leaders. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. You can do this by clicking reactions in your toolbar just right of the center. Once you click reactions, you will see the bottom, raise your hand. Click that to be in and online to speak, or just raise your real hand on your video screen. If none of that works for you, simply unmute yourself, pipe up, and when there's a pause or when we ask you to respond. So now for discussion and questions. Kay, are there any questions?
There are none in the chat yet, but I think people may, I see that Pastor Kevin Chandler has joined us, and it's great to see you again. And his hand is up, so go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good evening to all.
Good evening.
I am glad that this particular conversation is taking place because the one thing that is necessary is that the community must come together in fighting this battle. The NAACP motto is, when we fight, we win, but we must fight together. And this pipeline is an issue of environmental justice, and God has commanded us that we are to take care of the land.
That's right.
And I see this issue, and we've been through this before. I am the immediate past president of the Virginia State Conference in NAACP, and also currently the vice president of the Halifax County branch of the NAACP. And these battles can be won because the one thing that we have on our side are the hearts of the people. And this is a matter of health concerns. We know that these compressor stations emit a lot of noise and they are dangerous. And so I think that we must focus on the health concerns of the people. Now, we're just right next door to Pittsylvania County. So if anything was to happen, I'm sure that it would affect the counties around, surrounding counties, as we are downstream. So this is very good conversation. We have on the call, I think she's still with us, Karen Camblin, who is awesome when it comes to environmental justice. I just can't say enough about her and her efforts and the work that she has done. And I think that if we all work together and help to spread the word, when we fight, we win. So thank you.
Thank you. And amen. I see that Dr. Robinson, the moderator for Cherry Stone, is on the line. Dr. Robinson, did you want to share something with us this evening?
Good evening. I'm very happy that I could attend this session. Thank you, Sister Anita. I'm very happy for the hard work of the environmental committee of our local chapter, Pittsylvania County, as well as the hard work of all of you all. Miss Elizabeth Jones and Mrs. Katie Whitehead, they have supplied good information, and I come this evening to receive more information And I also come because I'm very interested in seeing that our community, our land, our air, our water, if this is not so we can use it and continue to live as God has ordained us to live on the land, then we do have a problem. I also come to get information this evening so I maybe can go back to individuals that might not be up on the information or still have questions. But I do thank you for the informing us and giving us information. I am a citizen of Bannister District, and I do need more information, or I'm appreciative of what I've already received and learned. So I do make contact with different individuals, different churches. So hopefully we can spread the word and get other individuals involved in knowledge so we can stand. And like Reverend Chandler said, when we're together, when we fight, we win, when we're together. So thank you. And I have received already a lot this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, Reverend Joan Tarpley Robinson is the new, I want to say chairman of, what is your official title?
Moderator of the
Moderator.
Cherry Stone Missionary Association. That
And also
presently
pastor.
of the Rosebud Baptist Church in Chatham, Virginia.
Thank you.
Chairman Royson, I see that Dr. John Jefferson's hand is up as well.
Go ahead, sir.
Hey, okay, there's a couple things I want to just bring up. Like the Joneses were talking about the impact of living in an environment that's affecting the health of people. All right, those are things we know about. Those are the things we know about. There's also been a lot of studies recently that are actually showing the impact on intelligence, especially the impact of intelligence on children in utero or up to like 4 years old when they're in those developmental stages. And so there is an excellent book written by Harriet Washington called A Terrible Thing to Waste. And what's actually happening is within this environment, we're actually making our kids not as smart as they should be because of the environment in which they live. And studies have also shown that all of that stuff, well, most of it is actually reversible with some very simple changes within the environment. Also, and Dr. Finley Brook is an expert on this, but once we start getting into this hot and heavy, one of the natural questions, one of the things that people always say is, we'll get DEQ to test for this. DEQ don't care about you. DEQ does not test for the things that we care about, as far as development goes. And so that leads me into my next point of these companies know exactly what they're doing years and years out. And so our communities are actually falling within a model. And we got to find out and figure out the criteria of that model so we can actually stop playing defense all the time and eliminate whatever it is that makes us attractive to them. And okay, my last point is, as a preacher, there are things that we know. There are things that we know. We know how to exegete a text from thousands of years ago and make it relevant to people today. And so when it comes to us organizing and talking to the people, and this is why preachers are particularly positioned perfect to do this, is if you talk to educators, they're going to talk about there's a problem with education. If you talk to doctors, they're going to focus on health disparities. If you talk to bankers, they're going to be talking about loans and economic stuff. Whereas if you talk to a preacher, we're the ones that are actually trained to sift through all of that, and come to the truths that need to be spoken at that point. And so that's why I implore all faith leaders to study up and get involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see another hand up.
Martha Woody's hand up, and after that, we have another question from the chat.
Thank you.
Hi, yes, I'm Martha Woody, and I'm on the board of directors of Ohev Zion Synagogue in Martinsville. I actually got the invitation to join this meeting through Nick Bellinger of Virginia Organizing, because I've been involved with Virginia Organizing for a number of years. And I had, in a weaker moment, volunteered to do a letter to the editor of the Martinsville Bulletin about the Lambert compressor station, and then said, but I have to research this, and life got in the way. So this was an excellent opportunity for me to get more information without having to look for it myself. But the point of me putting my hand up was actually because of gerrymandering. I live in Les Adams district, and Les Adams lives in Chatham, Virginia. You know, is that one of the places where we need to be trying to apply some pressure, or at least to let him know that people are, and not just people in Pittsylvania County, or that, you know, there's, and I will say, having had some conversations with Les Adams, he and I don't agree on a whole lot, but I do think on some issues, his heart is in the right place. Now, I felt like his heart was in the right place on more issues, but, you know, we'll start where we are, or where we can start. So anyway, that's really my question is that, and is there any sort of concerted effort to, and not just with Les Adams, but, you know, with
Bill Stanley,
anybody who, or Bill Stanley is another, I don't agree with him on everything, but, you know, his heart's been in the right place on several things. And again, because of gerrymandering, I live in Bill Stanley's district. So again, what plan do we have going forward? Let me put it, and somebody else has their hand up, and I'm gonna stop talking.
and this makes for good conversation. So after the next one you said, then there's another question. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. There's a question in the chat from Laura Lewis, which is, are more people of the communities displaying more interest and participation, which seems to connect to part of Martha Woody's inquiry. You know, how do we start to make these connections? So I just offer you those. With the note to Ms. Woody that this is it. You disconnected.
All right. Okay. Anybody, any discussion around that? Because I know less as well. Go ahead.
I can answer that. Right now, in communities all across the world, there are organizers that are relearning the organizing process. And they're relearning the organizing process primarily because of COVID. And so everything is new again. The whole book of community organizing is being written over. To Miss Woody's question, power maps. You put a name of the person in a circle around them, and then you connect them to every person that has influence in their lives. And then you not only focus on that person, but you focus on their locus of power surrounding them, whether it's an organization or an individual, and take it to them. And that's a lot. That has a lot to do with people changing their minds. It's less about what's said in the paper and more so about the influential people in your life giving you a call, asking you what's up.
And someone just said, also follow the money.
That same thing as a power map.
It is, it is.
That's a part of it.
And you had there was another question out there?
Well, there's another hand up, which was Mr. Jefferson's, Dr. Jefferson's, he just spoke. Pastor Chandler, is your hand still up or up from before?
It's up from before, it is, yeah.
Okay. I don't think,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to be so formal that, just, it's becoming a conversation, which is what we hope for. So we're watching for your hands and your questions in the chat, but there is just waving at the screen.
Joshua.
If I can butt in for a second, for anyone who's newer to the issue on the call, Martha, for example, if you're looking for informational resources, we did put a couple of links to webinars that the Pittsylvania County NAACP has posted this year. So feel free to check those out. You might recognize some of those faces.
And Josh, this Zoom meeting is going to also be posted. Good, because there were several people who missed it, and one that texted me right before we got started and said something came up, but please send her information. So that's good because she can take it back to her church. Okay, if there's no more conversation around this, this has been enlightening, and like Dr. Tarpley Robinson said, it's good information. And I know
Anita, Ray, Faith Harris and Kate Ferguson have raised their hand.
Oh,
defer to Faith Harris' greater wisdom.
I would not say that. Please do not say that. Don't set me up that way. I have a couple of thoughts that I would want to share with people who are wanting to get involved in this issue and stay involved. Not only so ultimately, the fight right now is about the Lambert compressor station and the MVP. But the truth is, we actually need more and more Virginians, regular, everyday people, to wake up and pay attention, or to become alerted to the realities that are happening in their communities. Too often, our leaders, particularly on the county level, in the local level, have become very complacent, and they've become very, accustomed to making these decisions without really taking the community concerns into account, without engaging community, without having the conversation. And when the community becomes aware, they in fact become indignant and don't really want the community to become too involved. And we've seen that with, Buckingham County. We've seen that across the state, Charles City, and other, and in Hanover. So I think it's a matter of recognizing, and this might be high level talk for this conversation, but I think it goes back to the larger debate and dialogue that we're having in our country around democracy. What does it mean to be a democracy? It means that we have an educated population who understands the issues, cares about it, and is involved, and that are holding we have this so-called representative democracy. We need to hold our legislators, our representatives, our leaders accountable, and that they have to know that we're paying attention. They have to know that we're going to object, and when it's time to object, and applaud when it's time to applaud. And so so that's one thing. I want to encourage all of you to stay in this struggle, even no matter what the outcome is, because it's important. But also there's the Environmental Justice Council. We are only a advisory board. So that means we have no power to veto anything, unfortunately. We had hoped that's what we were going to get, but we knew better, right? So we only make recommendations, but coming and sharing your testimonies when we have our meetings, you can find the meetings on the DEQ website. You know, that's important because then we know what's happening around the state. We're constantly trying to gather information and curate that. The second thing I want to encourage people to do is also to participate in General Assembly. Pay attention, you know, go if you have time, or make time, I should say, to go to, if it goes back in person, to come there for lobby days, for NAACP lobby days, for the Sierra Club lobby days, for you know, the other justice organizations lobby days, because it is incredibly eye-opening to see how arrogant and how blasé sometimes the representatives, your representatives behave in response to good, solid legislation. So you really need to stay informed, stay involved, and let them know that you are holding them accountable. To me, in my mind, those are the major components of doing this work from the grassroots level, holding those individuals accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Royston, Jason's hand is raised.
Thank you, Jason.
So I don't know how long this is going, so I just have a personal ask. Since I'm in this every day, the challenge has not been to reach those of us that can afford computers and can afford cell phones. The challenge has been to reach those that don't have the broadband because of their rural locations or their economic status at the moment, or because of their education. Some of these folks, our folks, put our educational time into a field or into a crop or into our next generation having an education. And those are the folks that have power. We know they have power, just being two-legged human spirits, but don't have the access to what we're talking about. So anybody who has the ear in your congregation, even if it's outdoor sessions, I would like those people to know that we can get written, printed information to them. My wife has raised some funds to actually bus them to places where they have to be bused. And this is in regards to voting for certain folks or just writing certain folks letters, letting them know that they still have a voice. Just in case it's over anyone's head, this is the new environment. This is the new racism. Environmental racism is the new racism. So where in the inner city, maybe it's gun police gun violence on our people. Not so much in the rural, it's that these companies think they have a blank check to come pollute our areas because all of our time is being put to good use, but we're just not aware, you know, that we're being targeted this way. So if you could just let our folks know that we are being targeted, and if it's not, but that's all I can say, man. That's all the Creator wants me to say. It's just an ask for you to be that voice for us, and we will back those folks up. We have resources. I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you. This is perfect. And I appreciate that because there are people who don't have broadband, and in our last webinar we were able to have a group gather over at the Bridge Center with Pastor Bishop Kel Stone, and with the big screen. So people were able to sit around and actually join in this webinar. So thank you. That's a good reminder for our meeting on the 19th. So, and before I even mention that, I want to ask for anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to speak. I know there are several of you who do speak, who are in the audience. Dr. Merritt, if you'd like to have a word, Brenda Poole, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if I have put you on the spot, just chime in a minute. Elizabeth has her hand up, and we want to talk a little bit about the 19th, what to expect, and the stories that we'd like to gather. Okay, is Elizabeth's hand still up? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Elizabeth is up, and she's also slated to speak about those next steps now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, I'm also very happy that Brother Jason from his tribe joined us tonight, because Anderson is a Native American. In fact, the family farm that his great uncle bought was it's indigenous, and he wants to tell you how, well, he wants me to tell you how close it was for us to see. First of all, we're excited about all the help we got from the environmental community, because I've learned just so much in the past year about MVP and what fracked gas compressor stations do. And now that the family farm has been affected by pipes and easements, we are proud to say that we have found many indigenous tribes in our community and throughout the United States that have been impacted by environmental injustice. And we just wanted to let our Native American brothers and sisters understand that we are with you in protecting clean air, clean water, and our environment, as well as our sister from the Jewish faith community. We're all in this together. There's only one world, and we have to protect it. And we'll do just that, because we do have some follow-ups. And I'm going to turn it back over to Anita.
Well, thank you so much now, and everyone, as we're winding down, could you join and invite members of your faith community on to our Thursday, August 19th meeting at 6:30 p.m. And it's Pittsylvania Community Circle of Protection for Environmental Justice, sharing our stories. And so we want you to share your own story that evening. And this is again on the 19th, and you'll be receiving more information in your story of how your life and your community has been impacted by the Transco station and the proposed MVP Southgate and proposed Lambert compressor station. You can also share your story to the Community Stories Facebook group page. Now, would you be interested, for the leaders out here, would you be interested in posting a flyer in your place of worship?
Yes, just Pastor Chandler, I gladly do that. Also, we'll include this information on our branch webpage so that that information will be spread.
Thank you. And what's a good time that we can drop some flyers off? Or we can just email them to you and to print and post.
Right. You can email it, that will be fine, and we can get those out.
Thank you. Thank you. And others, would you be willing to post flyers in your place of worship or on your page on your website?
Yes, this is Reverend Joan Topley Robertson. I'm willing to post flyers and you can email them to me. I think you do have my email. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And you could include a notice of the August 19th meeting. We would like for you to include the notice of the August 19th meeting in your church bulletin or your newsletter. Is this something that you could do to help further the cause? Thank you. And for the other leaders that are on the line.
This is Laura Lewis. Can you hear me? Hi, I'm not a faith leader, but I am willing to try to distribute the flyers and information leading up to the next meeting and all other meetings with my church family. I will share that. And I am a Piney Grove Missionary Baptist Church member, where Isaac Monroe is our pastor.
Thank you. Thank you. For others who are not pastors or faith leaders, thank you for being on the line. And please take the information back to your churches and see if you can get this information put in the bulletin, because we're talking about saving lives by empowering people and helping people to better understand, as you've heard throughout the conversations this evening. And if none of these feel right, for those who haven't spoken up, if none of these feel right for your community, will you consider inviting us to visit your congregation to speak to them about to speak to them about and lead a discussion on the proposed Lambert Compressor Station? And if so, please email or phone us to schedule a visit or to answer any questions you might have. And our email address is NAACPPITTSCOEJC@gmail.com. Or you can call 434-770-1730. And that's to invite some of us out to, or just to schedule a visit or answer any questions that you might have. Did I overlook anybody? Okay, everyone who wanted to speak, this has been very enlightening, and I want to thank you all for being with us this evening. And we're pretty much at our set time. We're a little early, but I don't think you mind the last few minutes, unless there's something else that's burning and you want to share with us. This is your time.
I would just encourage people to really, there's going to be opportunities to pressure to make sure that the September 17th meeting is held in your community. So just heads up on that. There's going to be ways to ask the Air Board chair and vice chair directly. So just look out for that stuff. That one of the things about meaningful engagement is they need to come to you. You don't need to come to them. You don't need to miss a day of work on September 17th. And just kind of looking ahead, because as I said, you're kind of a bellwether case. And so a lot of people are going to be paying attention. You have lots of leverage here. You have a lot of power at this point, but it's exhausting. And there's just so much coming at you. So there's lots of people that really want to provide information. And there's just so much great stuff that's happened tonight. But the next month is really important. And I'm so happy to have been here with you all. This was really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm glad that you brought that up because what she's saying is DEQ wants to have the hearing in Richmond, which is 150 miles away from the situation at hand. So rather than having to load up, although the Cavalier, Crystal and Jason can help with that, is with the transportation, we shouldn't have to go to them. They should come to us. But we all have to band together, and there's a lot of support with everyone that's been on the line now and others and the organizations, Sierra, Artivism, and the Interfaith, and the churches. If all the churches, all the community leaders, pastors would get together and rally around this issue, we can make a difference. They did delay the last one because we wrote letters saying, hey, it's not fair, and we want us to meet you in a hotel rather than at the DE, rather than where we are. So please hear us, and we'll talk more. We'll talk more because I'm getting kind of excited here, but we'll be talking more. Okay. And if there's nothing else,
Chairman, I think I saw Jason's hand up. Were you wishing to speak, or you're done? Okay, sorry. Go.
I was just saying that if it is in Virginia, we have buses and we're going to COVID safe those buses, whether we have plastic between the seats for our elders and our children. We want the people there. And we should be demanding they come to our neighborhoods. But, that's all I had.
Well, we'll push. There's power. There's power in numbers, and we want our children, our grandchildren, we want them to live. And as Elizabeth is always saying, our air is, what is it, Elizabeth?
Our air is our lives.
Our air is our lives. Okay, everyone. I'm sorry, I've had a little problem here. If there's nothing else, we will be in touch, and let's all stay in touch because we have a mighty work to do prior to the September the 17th. And everybody knows what September the 17th is about, right? Okay, that's all right. So here we go. I just want to thank you all for being with us this evening, and we are at our set time, pretty much, and we want to honor your time by giving you this moment to leave us if you need to. And those of you who wish to stay on longer, you can share more and ask more questions, and someone will be with you until 8 p.m. I guess this is the time to say goodbye and thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being a part, and you will be hearing from us. Thank you, Elizabeth.